Hey guys, Enigma here. So this is another Inktober drawing for the 17th. We're more than halfway through October now, and even though I haven't been able to do something every day for Inktober like I originally wanted to, kind of like last year, I still had a ton of fun this year. And I definitely feel like sort of taking it easy with the ink drawings have sort of helped me bump up the quality, like compared to last year. But I don't know, I enjoyed it all. Point is, hope you guys are having a great Inktober so far, by the way. Getting to the video though. This video is going to be sort of like a pseudo tutorial Tuesday thing that I want to do for the channel, for the drawing corner, and along with Fan Art Friday, which, by the way, spoilers, next Friday, we're actually not going to do part 3 of Cat, which is going to be more focused on the background. I'm going to actually talk a little bit about that, but it's actually going to be an Inktober drawing. But getting to the video itself, while I do enjoy and miss working completely traditionally, sketching digitally does have its benefits, and that's more or less what I want to talk about in this video. Not only is sketching digitally faster, but it also gives you a lot of leeway for errors, like just correcting things, making sure things look exactly like you want them, and just in general streamlining your workflow. However, you want to be careful with how you use your tools. This is mainly because you can very easily find yourself over detailing, or in a situation where once you print out the sketch, the details or whatever you do, like say you draw a face and like the various features on the face, like namely the eyes. I find this is a common issue with eyes. You end up doing it way, like things like lashes, way too small, and your physical tools like your pens, your brushes, whatever you're using, they're just too big to actually handle those details. So I sort of explained this a little bit, what my general process for doing a drawing is in the last Critique Corner episode that I did, the tips on structure and painting hair. But basically, to break it down for this video, if you want to do the digital to traditional process, what I recommend is you work at least 300 pixels per inch. And let's just take 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, for example, just to keep it simple and basic here. The reason it's important to have your pixel count at 300 is because at that point, your pixel ratios are basically 1-to-1 with what you see here in the actual physical world. For example, say you have a 5-pixel brush that you do little details with and such, which I recommend your smallest size brush be at least 5 pixels. Like, don't go anything smaller than that, or you're gonna start having problems once you print. A 5-pixel brush is pretty much equal to a 0.5 multi-liner or micron or whatever you want to call it. And it's the same thing once you go up in sizes, like your 0.8 micron would be the same as an 8-pixel brush, a bulky 1mm, I guess you would just call that a felt tip marker at that point. Yeah, just a felt tip marker, which is 1mm, would be 10 pixels, and 20 pixels, you know, it would be like the same as a 2mm drawing pencil, like a pencil if you've ever used like a lead holder or whatnot. So those are, with that in mind, generally what I do is I actually crank it up a notch at the very beginning and on a layer, like using a green color or whatever. I used green here because that's what I've sort of trained my eyes to understand is like basically the trash sketch. It's specifically called the draft sketch, but I just call it trash because that's usually what happens to it afterwards. But yeah, it's there specifically so you have an actual physical representation of the idea in your head. Like you just take whatever is in your head, just dump it onto the canvas right away, so that you could actually work with it and draw over that and fix it up with the actual sketch layer. And for that rough draft layer, it helps to have it be a separate color just so that you can visually recognize it as not being important, or you could very clearly see it in contrast to everything else. I know there's a lot of people that do just kind of just keep everything grayscale or whatever, but I kind of do recommend using separate colors just to help coordinate what exactly you're working with. In terms of the actual brush size that I use for that trash layer, I actually crank it up to like 50 or 100, sometimes even like 200, honestly. Just to keep everything super generalized. You especially don't want to detail anything at the very beginning. Like hundreds of people have said that, like all the world over. Like you don't need to hear it from me. You've probably heard it from like your other favorite artists, but you want to start as general as possible and sort of work your way in. And pretty much from that point, yeah, it's like, I want to say that it is fair game what you use at that point. You know, you can drop it down to like 5 pixels and just do like really tiny thin lines all over the place on your actual sketch layer, or you can like if you want to emulate the sizes for a brush pen, for example, you could use like a 25 pixel brush with some good tapering to it. But yeah, it's pretty much you do you at that point. Another thing when printing that's very important, because once you do actually print the sketch onto the paper, you got to remember that the printer is using ink, of course, and you can't erase that. So when you do print it, you need to print it as lightly as possible. Generally, what I find to be a good opacity to drop the layer down to once you go to print is around, and this is gonna change obviously depending on like what you're drawing and what size you're printing out to and so on and so forth, but I find dropping the opacity down to between 10 and 20% is pretty good for actually printing onto a sheet of paper. Then pretty much from that point, you can either like go straight at it with inks, or what I actually do with this drawing is I actually go back and detail specific areas that I felt were a little bit too rough with an actual pencil. And again, it's just, you gotta find what works for you, you know, keep it loose. And ultimately, that's also why I prefer this workflow when doing traditional inking, because it just gives you a lot of leeway. It doesn't take a lot of time to do the sketch to begin with, and even if you do mess up, you know, because you have it saved digitally, you could always just run off another copy and whatnot. And you could always touch it up because you're printing it out so lightly, you could always touch it up and add extra details and such with your actual pens and pencils, so that you get exactly what you see. Also, I want to take a quick second to apologize for basically how bright and contrasted the video is right now. That's an accident on my part, because there's a video that I recorded prior to this one that I'm going to be posting on Friday for Fan Art Fridays, where I got fed up with the default recording program that my webcam uses, and I started using OBS, which is way better to record with. I found out it's way more efficient and everything, but I accidentally forgot to set things up so that it didn't like autofocus and auto white balance and everything, and it ended up, the more ink that I put onto the piece, because there's so much white all around, it just ended up blowing up the contrast. So yeah, that's my bad. Because normally what you do with these videos, and I'm sure you guys have seen it with like other people's traditional drawing videos, like normally you want to keep things like autofocus and all that turned off, because you want to go manual. Otherwise, like with all the movement and everything from your hands, from your tools, from moving around the page, like it just causes the camera to screw up. But yeah, that's more or less the end of the video right there. So I did do a little bit of post editing in Clip Studio to fix up the hair on the left side, because I felt like I filled in a little bit too much black there. But yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and if you want to check out my other Inktober drawings, you can check out on my channel, and subscribe if you want to get updated with more. Alright, I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.